mirror. Anna looked and then took the mirror out of my hands and tried it herself. Then she tried the other letters. It absorbed her for about an hour, and then she brought it out. Fin. If the half of the looking glass is the same as the half on the table, then the letters don't change. O is the funny one, because you can have half it in lots of ways. Anna was coming to grips with the axis of symmetry. This was a new game to play. These were new wonders to be seen. Some things turned inside out, or at least left to right, and some things didn't. We made a pocket-sized mirror book with handbag mirrors donated by Millie and Kate, backed it with wood against the possible accidents of breakage, and then we took it on the street. This little book went everywhere with us. We'd flop down in the road and seeing some expected structure in the paving stone, and out would come the mirror book. Beetles were gently introduced into the mirrors. Leaves, seeds, tram tickets. Why, you could spend the whole of your life doing this sort of thing. Coloured bulbs were sandwiched in the mirror book and switched on, and we peered through the tiny spy hole. Why, for a couple of bob, you could outdo Piccadilly Circus, Blackpool and Southend all combined. It was all very miraculous. Not only miraculous, but useful, because we could see both sides of an object at the same time. Well, more or less. Anna wondered if we could see an object all the way round. So we made a couple of mirrors. One side was hinged with a spy hole, and the objects were hung in the centre of the cube by a cotton thread. We had to put lights inside as it was too dark to see. And well, I'll be darned, we could see all the way round. I never counted how many mirrors we bought and used. It must have been well over 100. All the Platonic figures were made out of mirrors, plus a few shapes that Plato never even dreamed of. Ours was just a bit different. We got inside ours and saw things that language would be hard put to describe. We discovered a lot of crazy arithmetics that made sense as long as you were prepared to live with these mirror worlds. Admittedly, on this side of the mirror things got a bit tricky, but as long as you remembered you were doing mirror stuff, that was all that mattered. We learned to draw, write, and do sums on a pad of paper before us. The difficulty lay in the fact that we didn't look at the paper, we were looking at the reflection of the paper in the vertical mirror. The tension was at all times unbearable, the concentration absolute, but we did master it. One evening, it was suggested that the mirror book was something more. It wasn't a mirror book, it was a miracle book. Mr. Weekly's dictionary told us that mirror came from the Latin miriane, to wonder at, and that miracle came from the Latin mirus, wonderful. We knew that Mr. God had made man in his own image, so could it be? Was it possible? He might have had a big mirror fin. What would he want to do that for? I don't know. He might have had. Could be. Perhaps we're on the other side. How come the other side? Perhaps we're the wrong way round. That's a thought, Titch. That's why we get it all wrong. Yeah, that's why we get it all wrong. Like numbers. Like numbers? Yeah, the numbers in the mirror. How's that? Them numbers in the mirror, them numbers is taken away numbers and not add numbers. What? Don't get you, Titch. What are you driving at? Anna took her paper and pencil and wrote 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Them is add numbers, she pronounced. If you put a looking glass on 0, then the numbers come out -5, -4, -3, -2, -1. They're take-away numbers. I was following the argument so far. The reflected numbers were take-away numbers. She continued, people are take-away people. Hold it. I put my hand out. I don't get this takeaway stuff. She hopped off the chair and staggered back with an armful of books. Setting herself once again on the chair, she thumped the table once or twice. "That's 0, she informed me. "That's 0, and that is the looking glass." "Right, I've got that bit. That's the mirror." I gave the table a thump. "So what's next?" She placed a book on the table. "That's add 1, she explained, looking hard at me. I nodded. She placed a second book on top of the first. "That's add 2. I nodded some more. "That's add 3, that's add 4, and the pile grew higher and higher. When she was satisfied that I'd grasped exactly what she was trying to say, an arm knocked over all the books and swept them to the floor. Now, we were obviously coming to the difficult bit. "Where," she asked, "is a takeaway book?" The question was asked with hand on her hip and her head tilted. "Search me," I answered. "I haven't got it." Again she thumped the table a couple of times. "Down there! It's down there!" "Oh, sure," I replied. "It's down there." I had not much of an idea what "there" referred to, and said so. "A takeaway 1 book is a hole as big as a book, and a takeaway 2 books is a hole as big as 2 books. It's not hard," she said. It wasn't. Not when you got the hang of things. So I plunged in with, "So, a takeaway 8 books number is a hole 8 books big." She continued on her tutorial way. "If you've got a takeaway 10 books hole, and if you've got 15 add books, how many books have you got?" I began to tip the 15 add books down the hole one by one and watch them disappear. I lost 10 that way and then ended up with 5. "5, I announced. "But what's that got to do with takeaway people?" I shrank about 4 feet under her sympathetic gaze and just managed to stop myself falling down the takeaway hole. "If," she underlined, "people are looking-glass people, then they are takeaway people. It's all pretty obvious. So obvious that it would take an idiot not to see it. We all know that Mr. God made man in his own image, and images are found in mirrors. Mirrors turned you back to front or left to right. Images were take-away things. So put it all together. Mr. God was, and Mr. God is on one side of the mirror. Mr. God was on the add side. We were on the other side of the mirror, so we were on the take-away side. We ought to have known that. When Mum puts the toddler down and backs off a few paces, she does so in order to encourage the toddler to walk to her. So did Mr. God. Mr. God puts you down on the take-away side of the mirror and then asks if you will find your way to the add side of the mirror. You see, he wants you to be like him. Take-away people live in holes. Must do, I admitted. What sort of holes? Different holes. Ah, well, that accounts for it. How are they different? Some big, some little, she continued, all with different names. Different names, such as... She walked around the holes, reading off the names as she went. Greedy, wicked, cruel, liar, etc., etc. On our side of the looking-glass, the whole place was littered with holes of various depths, with people living at the bottom. On Mr. God's side were appropriate piles of whatever, ready to fill up the holes if only we got the sense to ask for them. The piles also had names like generosity, kindness, and truth. The more you filled up your hole, the nearer to Mr. God's side of the mirror you got. If you managed to fill up your hole and still have something left over, why then you were well and truly on the ad side, Mr. God's side. You'll understand, of course, that Mr. God looks into his mirror and sees us all, but we can't see Mr. God. I mean, after all, a mirror image can't see what it's looking at. As Anna said, your face reflection can't see you, can it? Occasionally Mr. God sees fit to do something about somebody's hole. He sort of fills it up for them. It was what we called a miracle. Mr. God was never far from any of our conversations, and Mr. God was certainly getting more and more amazing. The fact that he could listen to, let alone understand, all the different prayers in all the different languages was something to marvel at. But even this paled into insignificance when compared with the stack upon stack of miracles that Anna was finding. Perhaps the most miraculous of all the miracles was that he had given us the capacity to find out and to understand these miracles. Anna reckoned that Mr. God was writing a story about his creation. He had got the plot all worked out and knew exactly just where it was going. True, we couldn't help Mr. God with this part of his activities, but we could at least turn over the page for him. Anna was turning over the pages. One day I was stopped by a Sunday school teacher. Sunday school teacher told me to instruct Anna to behave herself in class. I asked what it was that Anna had done, or had not done, as she was told. 1, that Anna interrupted. 2, Anna contradicted. And 3, that Anna used bad language. Anna could, I admit, use pretty good curse words at times, and I tried to explain to the Sunday school teacher that although Anna sometimes used language badly, she never in fact used the language of badness. My arrow missed the target completely. I could well imagine that Anna had interrupted her and also that she contradicted her, but she wouldn't tell me the circumstances of this episode. That evening I spoke to Anna on the subject. I told her that I'd met Sunday school teacher and told her what she'd said. Not going to school no more on Sunday. Why not? 'Cause she don't teach you nothing about Mr. God. Perhaps you don't listen properly. I do, and she don't say nothing. You mean to say you don't learn anything? Sometimes. Oh, that's good. So what do you learn? Sunday school teacher is frightened. What makes you say that sort of thing? How do you know she's frightened? Well, she won't let Mr. God get bigger. How is it that Sunday school teacher won't let Mr. God get bigger? Mr. God is big. Yes, Mr. God is big. And we're little. Right enough, we're little. And there's a big difference. Yeah, and then some. If there wasn't no difference, it wouldn't be worth it, would it? This confused me a little. I suppose I must have looked a bit puzzled, so she came again, sideways this time. If Mr. God and me was the same size, you couldn't tell, could you? Yes, I said, I see what you mean. If the difference is very big, then it stands to reason that Mr. God is big. Sometimes, she cautioned. It obviously wasn't as simple as that. In easy stages, I was led to accept the fact that the bigger the difference between us and Mr. God, the more God-like Mr. God became. At such a time when the difference was infinite, then Mr. God would be absolute. What's all this got to do with Sunday school, teacher?